You ever watched a movie and thought, this looks familiar? Well, that's basically what you're gonna feel when you watch The Silence. Today I'm going to be doing a review on The Silence. The Silence is a post-apocalyptic film that tells the tale of a family who is going through this episode. This, kind of shows their story of how they go through this. And I'm going to be very honest, it's very reminiscent of The Quiet Place. The Quiet Place was one of those films where it kind of opened up a whole new era of post-apocalyptic genre, and now we're seeing more and more films that are very much like it but with a different twist, such as Bird Box, and now this one coming out. Both Bird Box and The Silence are available to watch on Netflix, and then The Quiet Place, I want to say you'd have to go ahead and buy that, because I'm pretty sure it's not on Netflix, but moving along. So The Silence, so basically what happens is there's scientists or archaeologists who are investigating a cave, and they accidentally dig too deep, and a whole bunch of these creepy creatures feast on them and then fly away. And then we don't hear anything of them until now we cut to the family, and they cut through the daughter with narration. Narration in a film, I don't mind. However, I see why a lot of people usually don't like it. Narration in a film kind of kills the story suspense in a way, because it already tells you that these characters are going to survive. Now, if it's done in a good way, the character could die and you wouldn't know because it's just, done well. But however, for this one, I didn't really feel like the narration was necessary. She kind of stated the obvious the entire time, and it was kind of like, what's the purpose of this? At one point, she literally says, "This is our story." And I was like, I got that. I'm watching you. I mean, it's not your neighbor's story. It's okay. The main characters it's a family. A husband, a wife, grandmother, son, and daughter. The daughter is deaf. We didn't see that coming. There are a lot of similarities between The Silence and The Quiet Place. I couldn't help but keep thinking I'm watching the same film, but just with different twist, maybe a little bit of a different plot. However, it's just so similar. Like, for instance, the daughter being hard of hearing in The Quiet Place. In this story, the girl is deaf. However, she wasn't born deaf, or it's not something that she lost a long time ago. She was just in a car accident that had left her with this disability. And so just from that, kind of being a very pronounced thing in the film, it kind of makes you feel like, she's kind of going to be the one that's going to save the day. And that's not exactly how this film goes at all, which is kind of weird, because I feel like they kind of threw it in there a little too much, especially with her narration. She kind of gave herself this dialogue of just kind of being like the key, and it's pretty intense, like at one point she's like literally just talking about like how she's just different from everyone else, and how she notices things from everyone else, and maybe she was meant to notice this. And you're just like, you kind of, at some point you kind of feel like you're just watching a memoir of somebody who's just kind of telling you that she's the greatest person ever, and it's just kind of annoying. And then as you go throughout the film, there are certain deaths in the film that are kind of I can't really say that I care too much about them. And to be honest, I think it's just because the film doesn't really give them too much of importance. Like, for instance, the uncle or father. I didn't really care too much about him. He obviously wasn't in the film long enough for me to kind of like feel too much for him. And honestly, I think it just served as a kind of kind of being a thing to happen to kind of propel the family to do something else. So it was like he was just very coincidentally there for something, almost like a prop, if you will. He was very propish. He served his purpose. However, I did feel like the grandmother did kind of have a bigger role, especially when it came down to helping the mother when she gets her leg feasted on. More about that later. So, and also the movie adds extra characters that I don't really feel like we needed to have. What was the purpose of adding this boy in this girl's life? Now I get, yeah, it's normal teenage life, love interest, but he really didn't serve any other purpose in the film. So why was he there? Like, could the film have gone on better without him? Yeah, we could have. There was no reason for him to be in this film. And I just didn't feel like it really added anything to it. My favorite character was the father. The father was absolutely amazing in this film. Just because he didn't really seem like, I don't know, panicky. Everything was just a very like, okay, sure, no problem. All right, we're gonna get through this. Okay, we'll be fine. Okay. Everything was okay, and everything was just, he just went into it and just kind of like did everything he needed to do. And it kind of made the film very boring, because instead of you feeling like you're watching a family struggle and go through this, it was more like a father, holding everybody on his back and bringing and taking his family through this. And it was kind of boring, because in these kinds of films, you kind of want to see more. You want to see the struggle. You want to see the desperation, the fear, the emotion. And it was just kind of coming from one character, a sense of survival. The family was just kind of doing everything that he said, and he was the leader. And yeah, there's always a leader, but this family would have just died without him. He carried it through. And then if I want to be super nitpicky about the movie, there's a lot of nitpicky things in there. Kind of making the decision to leave the van a little too soon. There's nothing to protect you, from the creatures. I mean, one false move on a twig and you're all done. Like, there's no do-overs. So I felt like that was kind of weird for them to kind of take that step. Yes, I know obviously using the car would have not been a good option either, because it makes a lot of noise, but at least the car would have kind of protected you enough, or kind of served as a good buffer, before the creatures reach your head. But that's just me being very nitpicky. But yeah. And then there's also this scene, where the family comes up to a house, and this lady comes out gun blazing, literally, with a shotgun, and she must have been, I guess, the only person who didn't see the news, because she was making all sorts of noise. And of course, once again, it was one of those props that kind of was there just to allow the story to progress. Because of her, she serves as a distraction for the creatures, because they're gnawing on her, because she obviously didn't know, hush. The family takes this opportunity to go ahead and take shelter into her house. And so in order to do this, though, they need to go through a pipe. And obviously, something's wrong. So they go through this pipe. And I had a little bit of an issue with when the kid goes through, and finds that there's a rattlesnake. The creature ends up flying in and just completely devouring, or just ripping this snake to shreds. And the way that it happens is so quick that I find it really hard to believe that this child wouldn't make any noise. Like, you know what I mean? You're surprised, and he just nothing. And I mean, we're talking about creatures this close, not so much as a and it was kind of a little unbelievable, to kind of believe that this creature cannot hear that, just so much as a, or a, any sort of like that. I don't know if it was because he was too busy devouring the snake. Maybe I'm just being too nitpicky, but it was a stretch. And then also getting into it, when the creatures come, and because of the rattlesnake, they start to gnash. They start to gnash on the mother's leg, and we find out when she gets into the cabin just how bad it is. When they reveal this cut, it kind of looks like the Black Panther, just, it doesn't really look like post-apocalyptic creatures snacked on her leg like a chicken bone. It more so just looks like, And I was just like, that's a little odd. That progresses the story into the father and the daughter now needing to get antibiotics for the mother so she can survive. So cue in the creepy village, empty, creepy village that you usually see in zombie movies. And all of a sudden, not them, but you're then taken into this weird world, and there's another character that's introduced into the story. But the way that they introduce him is kind of like those anime characters that don't want to be seen, and they're super mysterious, so they're just chilling on a random building, like. And that's pretty much what this priest did. He was very creepy anime-ish, and he did that for a good long time until they got what they needed and got out, and then he proceeded to do his normal, his interaction with them. However, but then it progresses into something even deeper, which turns out to be the climax of the film. Now, I wasn't particularly happy with this just because usually for the climax of a post-apocalyptic film, it's character versus creature or zombie or whatever, and here it was kind of like person versus person, and I was like, it's kind of like an episode, the end of a season premiere, maybe. Definitely not the climax of a film, especially when you put it up against a film like The Quiet Place, which was like this kind of film, and them kind of having that climax with that creature, I thought was a lot more lasting, a lot more memorable, and a lot more suspenseful. But with this, and I'm not saying, I wasn't like, oh wow, okay, didn't see this coming, wow, okay, what's gonna happen? I had those moments, but I still thought that this wasn't gonna be the end. So when it turned out to be that way, I was just like, oh, okay, that's pretty flat. And that's kind of how my attitude was towards the end of this film, because pretty much after that they meet up with this random boy again that she's that really you have no emotion for. She's kind of with him, and they kind of end the film on a, this could be a part two. There could be a part two to this film, which is once again how The Quiet Place ended. It ended with kind of like you seeing, that they've evolved now and they know how to fight these creatures, and off they go. And which I guess in a sense, with post-apocalyptic films, it's one of those things where it's like, I want to see an end. I want to finish just one, where you have a happy ending. Kind of like if you bring it back to World War Z, which I don't particularly care too much for zombie movies. One, because I think they're overplayed. I haven't really seen one that's actually good or that has much depth, I'll say. But I actually really liked World War Z. I thought that it had a lot of depth in it, and I liked the way they ended the film, which is where I was going with this. Kind of the way the film ends is, there could be maybe a part two, but we ended, in a sense, and it gave you a sense of there's hope, so it just left a lot to be desired. But this is just my opinion. I highly encourage anyone who likes those kinds of films, go ahead and see it. Tell me how you feel about it. It's not a bad film, but it's not the best. I'm gonna give The Silence a 2.5. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you did see The Silence, let me know what your thoughts were. And of course, don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more of these videos, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.